Now I've had to do this mock draft a handful of times. There's going to be 2 rounds, you can tell from the title. And I was trying to go into it, you know, doing a couple runs, seeing how it would go. And then the Russell Wilson trade rumors became reality. So Russell Wilson to the Broncos. Seattle now holds the number 9 pick. They also have one in the second round we'll get to later. And Cam Robinson was tagged. Mike Williams was extended. Chris Godwin was tagged. A bunch of different things happened, but I don't think that changes the number 1 overall pick. I'm going to go Ike Ekwonu for now. The Jags offensive line was still not good. A franchise tag, as we know, is just a 1-year, we're keeping you no matter what. So they still could use an offensive lineman for the future. You know, we have multiple tackles. Ike Ekwonu has experience at guard. So I think year 1, you can plug and play anywhere on the offensive line, with the exception of center, probably. And I think next year, he can be your starting left tackle if you don't retain Cam Robinson. So I think offensive tackle is still very much in play here for the Jaguars. At number 2, going with Aiden Hutchinson. I've done this all in advance, by the way, to kind of streamline the process. Hutchinson, maybe the best player in the entire draft, is the pick here for the Lions. Stays in Michigan. The Texans, I think, will go Evan Neal in this scenario. Offensive line is still a huge priority for them, or at least it should be. Laramie Tunsil does not appear to be in the long-term plans. This is an instant replacement. And that sets up the Jets at number 4. This is a little bit of a tough one. The top 2 O tackles are off the board. O tackles, hated that. Top 2 offensive tackles are off the board. And I think in this scenario, you still might go and consider Kayvon Thibodeaux. Thibodeaux is a really, really good player. I know the hype is kind of down on him. There are concerns about maturity, whatever. He's still a really good player. I think he's absolutely in play here for the Jets at 4, especially considering how important edge rushers are in the Robert Saleh defense. Kayvon Thibodeaux to the Jets at 4, and the Giants at 5. I went back and forth on a number of different guys at this pick, and I settled on Charles Cross. I don't think that the Giants will be able to get a starting caliber offensive tackle, at least right out the gate, in the second round. And unless you're taking Charles Cross at 5, Panthers could take an offensive tackle as well. So the options at 7 become fairly limited. And unless you're taking Trevor Penning at that spot, I think you are going to go with offensive tackle with your first pick. Things could change, but that's what I think is going to happen. For the Panthers, I think they're in make or break mode for Matt Rule. I think the Panthers are coaching for their lives right now, Matt Rule especially. And I think if they don't do something to turn around this franchise quickly, Matt Rule is going to be gone. So Malik Willis is the guy that can potentially move the needle for them, because you're not going to move the needle with, you know, a corner or an offensive lineman here, really. I think they got to go big or go home and try to get an offensive lineman in free agency, or maybe even multiple. Try and bolster that group. But we're going to swing for the fences here and take Malik Willis. Giants at 7. I've got Trayvon Walker. Walker blew up the combine. He's a really, really good player. I think the top 4 edge rushers, maybe even top 5, could all go inside the top 15, including maybe 4 in the top 10. I think Jermaine Johnson's a really, really good player. I wrestled with the idea of him going to the Giants at this spot, but I ultimately settled on Trayvon Walker, who had an unbelievable combine, and I think given more one-on-one pass rush opportunities, will continue to develop as a pass rusher. Falcons at 8. Kyle Hamilton's on the board. Sauce Gardner, Jermaine Johnson. Bunch of really good players in play. However, Calvin Ridley suspended for the season. They do not have a lot of receiver. I like Russell Gage. Olamide Zaccheaus is cool. We're going receiver, though. We're going Garrett Wilson. If you can get maybe the best receiver in the draft, if you can pick the first receiver off the board, whether it's Garrett Wilson or whoever, I think the Falcons might jump at that opportunity. A lot of needs all over the place, but Calvin Ridley just gave them another big need, and they go receiver inside the top 10. Going here for the Seahawks. The big rumor right now, people are speculating Malik Willis. He's not on the board here. We're not going to draft ahead and say, well, I can't have the Panthers draft Malik Willis because I want the Seahawks to get him. We got to go pick by pick and kind of assess what each team might consider doing. So I don't really think quarterback is in play here with Willis off the board. So what I've opted to do is kind of like a classic Seahawks move. And we're going to take Sauce Gardner. They covet length at corner so much. And this is one of the bigger corners you're ever going to find. Over 6'3", 33-inch arms. Very, very athletic, big corner. And the Seahawks love that archetype for a corner. And I think, yeah, no quarterback available. I think you're still pretty happy with this selection to get maybe a lockdown CB1 at number 9. Jets at 10. Bunch of good players still on the board. And man, I wrestled with this one for a while too because Kyle Hamilton's sitting right there. But I don't know, man. It is a tough call for sure. And I think we're ultimately going to take him just because he's too good to be available right now. And we got to improve that secondary. Hamilton can really do it all. So Kyle Hamilton to the Jets at 10 took edge. And I think Trevor Penning could also be in play there for sure. But we opted to go in a different direction this time around. Washington Commanders now. I still have to get used to saying that. And word on the street is they are not in on the quarterback class. So I'm going to go in a different direction. And I will be taking a receiver here. We're going to go with the big-bodied Drake London out of USC. I think he's a good pairing with Curtis Samuel and, of course, Terry McLaurin. Drake London is the pick. Vikings at 12. Kyle Hamilton just went. Probably would have loved to take him had he still been available, but he is not. So what do you do here if you're Minnesota? Well, I think there are a couple things in play. However, I think corner is probably the biggest need right now for them. We're going to take Trent McDuffie. He is our second corner off the board. A little bit cleaner than Derek Stingley as a prospect. Stingley the past 2 years just injured, does not have good tape, low effort, and didn't do anything at the combine either. So there are just still concerns with his injuries. And rumors are that he could drop into the 20s even. I'm not sure it quite gets that dramatic. At number 13, I think receiver is certainly in play here. But with Jermaine Johnson on the board, I really don't think the Browns would pass him up. Maybe a top 10 player in the entire draft. Jermaine Johnson's really, really good. Has had a tremendous offseason as well. Dominating the Senior Bowl. Having a really, really, really good combine. Browns need edge help. And Jermaine Johnson on the other side for Myles Garrett is a very, very good pairing. And that sets up the Ravens at 14. Couple different things in play. Couple different things. I think Jordan Davis certainly is. I really do. But we're going to go with Trevor Penning. Had a very, very good combine. We knew he was going to test really well. Didn't know it was going to be quite so good. He is one of the most athletic offensive tackles we've seen in the league. He is a freak, and the Ravens desperately need offensive line help, particularly at tackle, because Ronnie Stanley seems to be injured quite a bit recently, and you lost Orlando Brown Jr. He was on the Chiefs last year. Probably a plug-and-play right tackle right away for the Ravens. At 15, we have the Eagles. And what do the Eagles do here? Well, they need a bunch of different things, is really what it comes down to. And we know Howie loves his interior defensive linemen in general. I'm going to go Jordan Davis. He's just maybe the best player on the board at this point and is a big space eater, one of the freakiest athletes we have ever seen. You just don't see a guy 6'6", 340 moving the way he does, jumping the way he did, explosive, and maybe he can give you a little bit of pass rush as well as he develops. The athleticism is there. That's not the problem. So, big time potential for Jordan Davis. There are so many great players on that Georgia defensive line that he didn't have to play more than like 22, 25 snaps a game. I think he can do that in the NFL. The athleticism clearly not an issue at all. Eagles at 16. Another tough spot for Philadelphia just because you have a bunch of really good players available. And what do you opt to do? Well, based on the edge class right now, based on the board, I think we got to go David Ojabo for Philadelphia. Ojabo has tremendous potential, very, very athletic, And that's kind of the trend with a lot of the players in this class. It's a freaky athlete type draft. Ajabo falls in that same category. Still developing as a pass rusher. We know Howie put such an emphasis on drafting defensive line. And these are a couple real high potential players, including Jordan Davis, who is already a high floor, really good nose tackle, space eater in two gap. Jordan Davis, David Ajabo, really good pairing. Would create a lot of one-on-one opportunities for Ajabo, you would have to imagine. Chargers at 17 are going to catch the falling star in Derek Stingley Jr. Yes, they need tackle. Yes, they could take an edge rusher. Just extended, I should say, Mike Williams. But Stingley here, I mean, they did it with Derwin James at, I think it was 17. When he was falling a little bit. Same thing happens with Stingley. It's much cheaper to draft a corner than it is to sign one in free agency. So they're going to take Derek Stingley and hope for the best there. And hope his injuries are not a problem. Saints at 18. Man, it's really tempting to take Jamison Williams here. And I'm not going to be tempted by it. I'm just going to do it. Great player. Not an Ohio State guy. The Saints love to take their Ohio State players, but he was a former Ohio State player. Transfer to Alabama, was amazing before tearing his ACL. He is a stud, dude. Rehabbing really quickly. I think there's still a chance he goes pretty high in the first round, top 20. Eagles at 19. Tyler Linderbaum is still available. It's just kind of a no-brainer here. We're going to beef up the fronts on both sides of the ball. Linderbaum can be your Jason Kelce replacement. I know you drafted Landon Dickerson last year. He can either stick at guard or you can move Linderbaum over. But I think Linderbaum is your Jason Kelce replacement and Landon Dickerson is your eventual starting left guard. That's what I would bet on. It just seems to make too much sense. Too good of a player to be available at this spot. Linderbaum may be, again, a top 10 player in the class. Steelers at 20. Don't have to trade up for him. He just drops another lap. Kenny Pickett stays in Pitt. It's too easy of a storyline. And it makes sense for the Steelers, too, who could definitely choose to build around a young quarterback. Patriots at 21. Got to be Andrew Booth Jr. J.C. Jackson's going to test the market. And a man cover corner like Andrew Booth with ball skills, I mean, that I just described J.C. Jackson. So that's what they're shooting for with Andrew Booth here. And they might re-sign J.C. Jackson. They might not. They're not going to tag him as far as I've heard. So we don't know if they're going to extend him at this point as I record this. Things could change, though. Raiders at 22. I'm going to go Devontae Wyatt. Another guy with an unreal combine. He had a crazy performance, and it was overshadowed by his teammate Jordan Davis. But Devontae Wyatt's good. A better pass rusher right away, for sure. Really crazy athlete as well. I mean, this is a stud, for sure. Cardinals at 23. Gonna go corner. I think it's their biggest need, and Kaiir Elam is available. This board actually updated from when I've been doing these earlier. Elam was in the 50s, but yeah, he had a great combine. Ran 4.39, and long speed was a bit of a question with him. Just like Derek Stingley Jr., there are some injury concerns with Elam, but he's really good when he's on the field, and that is a CB1 type guy for the Cardinals at 23. For the Cowboys, we're gonna go interior offensive line. We're gonna take Kenyon Green. Keep the Texas guy in Texas A&M, over to DFW, College Station, the DFW. And Green, really good player. Plug and play left guard. That's your Connor Williams replacement. And I think you're going to be pretty happy with him. Kenyon Green is very good. And that sets up the Bills at 25 with another interesting decision. I mean, George Karlaftis is available. They need help up front. I think it has to be done. We're going to take George Karlaftis at 25 for Buffalo, who continues to try and beef up that defensive line. Just because they took Boogie Basham last year and AJ Epineza, and they've invested in defensive line, doesn't mean they're not going to take one here, especially when guys like Boogie Basham and AJ Epineza can move to the inside and Karlaftis can be a true edge for you. I think it's a pick that makes a ton of sense. Now, they could opt to go in the interior, a guy like Travis Jones, perhaps, Perrion Winfrey available, but we're going to go Karlaftis here in terms of positional value. We're going to value edge a little bit higher as the Titans are on the clock at 26, and they've got a couple tough decisions, but a great one. Do you take Treylon Burks, who is pretty similar to AJ Brown as a player? Do you just want two of them, or do you want someone that can stretch the field a little bit and take a Chris Olave, and we're going to opt to do that. Olave ran really well, 4.39 at the combine, just a 100th of a second slower than teammate Garrett Wilson. Still very good speed. We knew he was going to run pretty well. Deep threat. Olave to the Titans, I think, kind of diversifies their receiving core, and we'll see what happens with Julio and Nick Westbrook-Ikhine going forward, as the Bucks have the easiest decision they're ever going to make. Treylon Burks is here, but so is Zion Johnson. Ali Marpet just said he's retiring. Zion Johnson, plug-and-play replacement. I think you're going to be pretty happy with him at 27. Packers at 28. Treylon Burks is available. I feel like I don't need to say much more than that. Just kind of fell right into their laps. And with Aaron Rodgers signing an extension, or reportedly, although he has refuted these claims, so we'll have to see what happens with that. But Aaron Rodgers is staying in Green Bay. He said that much himself. Maybe they finally get him some receiving help, and that is Treylon Burks. They did tag Devontae Adams. I don't think that changes much. Treylon Burks at 28. I mean, very, very good value pick. And that sets up the Dolphins here at 29 to go receiver as well. We're going to go with Christian Watson from North Dakota State. I think there's a chance he gets into the first round. He's a really good player, and his potential is sky high. Again, freaky tester, one of the most athletic combines we've seen in a while when you factor in height and weight. Wild stuff from Christian Watson. Definitely could get first round consideration. Chiefs at 30 might end up losing Tyrann Mathieu. We're going to take Daxton Hill. He's just too good to be available at this point. I know he's being a little bit undervalued as a safety. He can play nickel corner. He can play man. Daxton Hill is so good, and I think worthy of a first-round selection to replace Tyrann Mathieu here for the Chiefs, who still need receiver, need edge help, but we're going with the hybrid corner safety Daxton Hill from Michigan. Bengals at 31. It's got to be O-line, right? However, the options are running a bit thin. If you look at offensive tackle, we have Bernard Ryman, Daniel Faalele, Nicholas Petit-Frere, but it's going to have to be an interior guy, and I kind of quote that because we're taking Tyler Smith, who is a tackle. I think could play tackle, but could also play inside. And I think that's probably where he would play if drafted by the Bengals. Interior has been so bad for them, but you could try him at tackle too. He's mean, he's developing, he's a really good athlete, and the Bengals need to protect Joe Burrow. That should be a surprise to no one. And the last pick of the first round here is going to be the Lions. And as you can see, the top linebackers are still available. We're going to go Devin Lloyd, maybe the best linebacker in this draft to round out the first round. Really good player. Didn't test quite so well at the combine, but I'm not really too concerned about it. Plays way faster on tape. Is a big dude. Can rush the passer a little bit too. Offers the Lions an immediate upgrade at any of their linebacker spots, really, whether you want to play him Mike or strong side. So we're going Devin Lloyd here. I think maybe he can be starting Sam right away, but maybe stick him at Mike. Keep him there. I don't know. It depends what the Lions want to do. Either way, you got a pretty good player. As we'll move to round 2, things start to get a little bit crazy in the second round, as a lot of these guys are so close that it's tough to say where these guys will actually go, who's going to fall out of the second round even. But that's why we're doing a 2-round mock draft. Things are going to get a little bit wild, and that's part of the fun of the draft. Guys always fall. Guys always go earlier than you think they will. I think a great example of a guy going later than you think is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah last year. You don't know what, health risks will arise. You don't know about anything that could alter draft position. Teams just deciding they want to take a different player. Maybe it was, option 2 each time, and they just opted to go a different direction. That could go down the board for 15, 20 picks. Who knows? But yeah, we're going to start off with one of the biggest risers so far coming out of the combine, and that's Lewis Cine. Safety out of Georgia. Tested really well, and it backs up the tape. He plays really fast, plays really, really physical and aggressive, and the Jaguars could find an immediate starter in the back end right now. Lions at 34. We're going to take a receiver 1 type player here in George Pickens. Just so good, and he's still developing as a player. Somebody got on me, said you can't use his ACL as an excuse anymore. He's just fallen off. I don't know if you realize when he tore his ACL to when he actually got back on the field. It was incredible that he even saw any playing time in 2021. So just because some guys are rehabbing ACL injuries faster, to expect the guy to be back in less than half a year from an ACL tear is obscene, asinine, insanity to suggest that. Pickens has big time potential, is already a good player. I think we could see him going definitely near the top of the second round, maybe even getting some first round consideration as well. For the Jets, we know they love their big time offensive lineman. Took Mekhi Becton. We're going to have Daniel Faalele here to potentially start at right tackle. He's just really big. Tough to get around him because he's so long. He's what, 6'8", 380 pounds. I think he was even 387 at the Senior Bowl. Faalele is a mountain of a man. And you have a mountain already in Mekhi Becton. Becton at left tackle, Faalele at right tackle. I think that's a pretty good combination there. And you're starting to build a real big foundation if you're the Jets, who I think are having a very good draft so far, even if they have a bit of a project in Faalele. Giants at 36. You've taken Trayvon Walker. You've taken Charles Cross. And here we're going to just go down the board of listed team needs. It just makes too much sense. We're going linebacker. And Nakobe Dean's available. Quay Walker's available. I really like the idea of taking either of those players. I think Nakobe Dean is just a little bit safer because his tape's so good. However, Quay Walker's got big time potential. Great athlete. He could go even ahead of Nakobe Dean. It just depends. Do you prefer Quay Walker's size at 6'3", 240, long arms as well, or Nakobe Dean at, I think, just under 6 foot, actually. So a little bit undersized, maybe 6 foot. But yeah, Nakobe Dean is my selection there. Texans at 37, we're going to take a freak athlete in Boye Mafe from Minnesota. Tested very, very well. We knew he was going to. Still developing as a pass rusher, showed flashes at the Senior Bowl, but the athleticism is there, and the Texans can really just take, you know, anybody as they go through this. This is not a great team, and Evan Neal was their earlier pick, if you do not remember. Jets, we're going to go with a corner here, and I will tell you, I'm not taking tight end for the Jets at any point. I think that's probably a third round thing. The tight ends here, you can get a number of starters, and I don't think you have to take one inside the top 40 picks. They could, and there are good players in here for sure, but I don't think that they have to. So I'm going to opt to take a corner, and that's going to be the long-armed, or lack of long-armed, Roger McCreary. Really good man coverage, but his short arms, hopefully I didn't confuse anybody, but his short arms are kind of his main drawback right now, and he will yank and pull on tape a little bit as well, which could be a little bit of a problem. However, the sticky and man coverage, he put up probably the best tape of any SEC corner last year. He's a good player. As we'll go to the Bears here, and I'm going to take Bernard Ryman. Ryman's good. Ryman's definitely good, still developing, and had an interesting combine. I thought he was going to be a real fast guy. Looks fast on tape. Was a former tight end / receiver coming out of Austria, and then as an exchange student. However, he was not all that fast at the combine. Not slow, but not all that fast. And then still put up like 30 reps at 225, which was wild, especially for a guy with decently long arms. And I keep talking about arm length. It is important. Teams do value that. That's why we're putting a little bit of an emphasis on it. As you get to Seattle at number 40, and this is the first big surprise. Didn't take a quarterback at 9, but you will take one here at 40. It's Matt Corral. Corral is another high potential player that we don't know if he's going to reach his ceiling. Maybe a little bit undersized as well by traditional quarterback, standards, but is not too small. Has a big arm, athletic. Not saying Russell Wilson, obviously, but kind of some similar traits. Just got to develop him, of course. But yeah, meeting a Russell Wilson comparison is very, very difficult. But you do have someone with a pretty big arm that is mobile enough. Not even mobile enough. That is mobile. So if you can develop him, Corral could be a home run pick for you. But they're in a bit of a tough spot. Losing Russell Wilson. It's a problem. Seahawks at 41. We're going to go with an edge rusher. It's Arnold Ebiketie out of Penn State. Really good player, really athletic as well. And Seahawks need edge help. Not much more to it than that. Washington at 42. We're going Desmond Ridder. They're not in love with the quarterback class. Well, you didn't have to take one at 11. You get one here at 42 that could end up being a starter for you. So yeah, they could still acquire a vet, but if they want to go the rookie route at 42, I feel like that's pretty good value for one of the top QBs in the class, even if it's not a great quarterback class in general. For the Falcons at 43, I'm going Jalen Petrie. Really good player, can do a lot of different things. Showed that off at Baylor, played in the box. I mean, he's a stud. And he, at the Senior Bowl, was very impressive. Sticky in man coverage, which was something that was a little bit surprising to me, just how good he looked. Petrie could definitely be a top 50 player when all is said and done. Browns at 44. We're going interior defensive line. I'm going Travis Jones. I do like Perrion Winfrey quite a bit. Jones was a freaky mover at the combine, and the tape is good, and was good at the Senior Bowl. Travis Jones is just a really, really good player. And for his size, 6'4", 330, you should not be able to move as well as he did, if not for the amazing performances by Georgia defensive lineman Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis. Travis Jones is being talked about like one of the freakier players in the class, but there are so many freaks in the class. Jones could be a top 50 player. Browns need to boost their defensive line. It just feels like a really, really good fit. Ravens at 45. Kind of need to hit the reset button on defense a little bit, losing a lot of their big time players. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And we're going to take Kyler Gordon. Didn't test crazy well, but the tape is still good. He's still a good athlete. Ravens could use youth at this cornerback position. Vikings at 46. I think safety is certainly in play. I like the idea of taking Jaquan Brisker. However, we're going to go interior defensive line. We're going to take Perrion Winfrey. Winfrey's really good. Like him as a player a lot. He dominated the Senior Bowl, won Senior Bowl MVP. Also looked great at the combine. Another freak athletic tester. He's a little bit lighter. So when he ran, 4.86 or whatever, he was only 290, I believe, at the combine. So it's a little bit lighter, but he's still crazy athletic. Just built like a ton of bricks, man. And the Vikings, I think, get a really good player in Perrion Winfrey. Colts at 47. Went back and forth in a number of different options here. Ultimately settled on receiver. I like Jahan Dotson. I like Sky Moore. I like John Mechie. I like Wan'Dale Robinson. Bunch of really good options at receiver. We're going to try and replace T.Y. Hilton, and that's with Jahan Dotson. Chargers at 48. No longer really considering receiver with the Mike Williams franchise tag. We took a corner. I think edge is in play. I think tackle's in play. Now, what do we prefer at this spot? Well, it's an interesting conversation for sure. I don't think the offensive tackles available are anything crazy. So we're going to opt to look defensive line. And we're not going to really take a true edge. We're going to take Logan Hall, who can do a number of different things. I keep calling him an inside-outside guy because I think depending on the formation you're talking about, depending on the personnel, you could play him as an edge. You could play him as, an inside guy. I think he can move from 3 tech, maybe as far outside to the 9. And that's a little bit extreme, but his bull rush is so good that I think it's certainly viable. If you can, get him on a runway, he's going to run over some guys. And Logan Hall, depending on what you want to do, I think you got a good player either way. Saints at 49. Once again, just like with the Colts, wrestled on which receiver to take because we got to take a receiver. But we ended up going one early in Jamison Williams. So we can kind of shift here in terms of what we want to do. Consider maybe offensive tackle. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Nicholas Petit-Frere available. We know the Saints love to take their Ohio State players. And we're going to continue that trend with Petit-Frere. Dolphins at 50. This is the first running back spot. It's Kenneth Walker. Tested crazy well. Tape's crazy good. I think he's going to be a top 50 player. And these running backs could go a little bit earlier. It just felt like the teams picking had more pressing needs than running back. Like, who's realistically taking a running back out of this bunch? Like, maybe the Falcons. maybe Washington, maybe the Giants or Texans. Feels a little early. Dolphins were just the first real spot to me that made a ton of sense. And then we're going to go back to the Eagles. They've had so many picks so far, and I wish there was a better corner on the board for them, but I don't think they would take Tariq Woolen at this spot. I don't think they'd take Darian Kendrick. We're going to finally opt to go linebacker, and there's some really, really, really good ones available. And Christian Harris, to me, impressive at the combine, plays very fast on tape too. He's one of the top linebackers in the class, could go even higher than this, but this feels like a sweet spot for him here at 51. Steelers at 52, again, same deal. I wish it made more sense to take a corner at this spot. We're going to opt to boost the offensive line for new quarterback Kenny Pickett. And we're going to go with Jamari Salyer out of Georgia. Continue the run on Georgia players near the top 50. I mean, with Salyer in here, let's look at it. Let's count here. So we have Georgia's Trayvon Walker. That's 1, first off the board. Jordan Davis is 2. We have Devontae Wyatt, 3. Lewis Cine, 4. Pickens, 5. Dean, 6. Where's Quay Walker? Am I not taking Quay Walker yet? Quay Walker is going to end up going to. Salyer is there at 52. And then for the Raiders at 53, this could be Quay Walker, honestly. Makes a ton of sense. But we're going to opt to build up the trenches still. We're going to go interior offensive line, and that is going to be Dylan Parham out of Memphis. Good player. A lot of hype. Potentially could be a center as well. I know you have maybe your center of the future in place already. Maybe. But Parham, I think, could slide in. Played right guard at Memphis, so he could do that. Move him over to the left side. There's potential for that. And then for the Patriots, we're going to actually go Quay Walker. Now, this originally was Leo Chenal, but some things have actually changed in the live version. Where Quay Walker was left on the board. Some other things switched and flipped around. But I still think the mock has been fairly good so far. I'm sure many will disagree. But Walker has what the Patriots covet at linebacker, which is size, speed, length. And that's why Leo Chenal made a ton of sense for them. But Quay Walker is, I think, a better player, better prospect, and is ultimately the pick here at 54. Cardinals at 55. We're going running back. It's Breece Hall. Tested really well. Tape's good at Iowa State. Good player. And an upgrade for the Chargers at running back, who may lose James Conner, Chase Edmonds. Makes a ton of sense. Cowboys at 56. Bunch of good players still on the board. I think tight end is certainly in play. I think it really, really is. But we had to address a starting need in the first round to plug up that left guard hole. So are we going to take what I would call a luxury pick with the tight end at 56? Maybe. Top tight ends are still on the board. Trey McBride's available. I think Cameron Thomas makes a ton of sense here. And it's ultimately what I'm going to decide to do. Just 6'5", 270. He's got the size. He's got the length. Can play 4-3 defensive end, which is what the Cowboys are going to want him to do. Can move him inside a little bit as well, depending on the personnel. I think it's a pretty good pick for Dallas at 56. Bills at 57. We went edge earlier. Took George Karlaftis. And we might opt to continue to build up that interior defensive line. I think Fedarian Mathis makes a ton of sense for them. I think he really, really does. DeMarvin Leal's available. Good players available. I mean, it's a really deep draft class, even if it's not like all that strong near the top 10 in terms of where those players would be in other draft years per se. But it's very, very deep. So you're going to get players in round 3, round 4 that are round 2 caliber players. Guys in round 2 that are maybe round 1 caliber players. Because of the COVID year, there's just so much depth in this draft with guys going back for the extra year of eligibility that they gained. But for the Bills, though, I am going to opt to go DeMarvin Leal. More flexibility on the defensive line. We're going D-line. I know some are not going to like that, but ultimately that's where games are won and lost, in the trenches, where you can put pressure on the quarterback when you can rotate guys in and out. It was a big reason why the Georgia defense was so successful in college football this year. I know it's not college football, but it's still football. So if you can get talented guys that are rotating in and out of the defensive line, depending on the personnel, I think you could be pretty successful. We know that offense is going to cook either way. Falcons at 58. We're going edge, and I'm going Drake Jackson. Still a really good athlete. You know, he was talked about like an early first-round guy at the start of the year. Tape wasn't so great at USC, but it's not like there's a ton of talent around him. So I still think he's a good prospect, and certainly one that could go in the top couple of rounds without question, if not maybe even higher than this. Packers. We're going to go back-to-back edge rushers. I'm going to take Sam Williams. Freak athlete with production in the SEC. Double-digit sacks. Ran, I think, in the 4.4s. Like, are you kidding me? Losing Zadarius Smith in the near future. Might have to cut him. Sam Williams can be a replacement. Rashawn Gary's coming along really nicely. I think this makes a lot of sense for Green Bay. Bucks at 60. This is one that was really tough for me, but ultimately I'm going to take one that is maybe going to upset some Bucks fans. I just couldn't care less about it. I'm taking Sam Howell. I think he's a better prospect, better player than Kyle Trask. And I know they took Kyle Trask around this same spot last year. I don't care because Howell's available. I think he's better. I think it's an upgrade. It's a young quarterback either way. I don't think you have to be attached to Kyle Trask because you spent the number 64 overall pick on him a year ago. I don't think you do. I think Howell makes a ton of sense for this spot. If he were to be available, we're taking him. So if you don't like it because you already have a quarterback in Kyle Trask, you don't have a quarterback in Kyle Trask. Maybe he develops. Maybe he doesn't. Sam Howell at 60, unapologetically. And then for the 49ers, I'm going Tariq Woolen. They need an upgrade at corner. Woolen is one of the crazy athletes we've ever seen. A corner, standing 6'4", jumped 42 inches in the vertical. Insanity. Then he ran 4.26 in the 40 at 6'4", one of the 5 fastest times in NFL history for the combine. And think about the guys that are up near the top of the list. You have John Ross, 5'11", CJ 2K, 5'11". You have, well, Kalen Barnes now from Baylor ran 4.23. He's 5'11". At number 4, I don't know, maybe, the Ruggs is in there. Hate to say, talk about Henry Ruggs. He's, I think, 5'11". Jacoby Ford might be in there. He's certainly not over 6 feet. So you're getting the trend here about what it takes to be that explosive and that fast. Woolen is 6'4". Think about how wild that is. I think he's a guy that ultimately will go on day 2. Not sure it's quite this early. Could be even earlier. But the 49ers need corner really, really badly. And then for the Chiefs, took safety earlier. I still think you need edge help very, very badly. But we're going to opt to go with a receiver instead. It's Sky Moore. I think he's going to go somewhere in round 2. I think for sure. Maybe a chance he gets to the 3rd. But he's a good player. He will not go beyond day 2. He's just too good. And big hands, too, for an undersized guy. His hands are huge. You're not going to have drop concerns with that, probably. With the bigger football, certainly it's slightly bigger. It's not going to make much of a difference. Bengals at 63. Talk offensive line earlier. And with Darian Kendrick on the board, I think we can afford to take corner here. A guy who could be considered as a first-round guy, if not for the off-the-field stuff. Tape's pretty good. He's a good athlete, looked great in the drills. Kendrick to the Bengals. They need help at corner pretty badly. And then the last pick of the second round will be for the Broncos, who just acquired stud quarterback Russell Wilson. So many good players available here. Jaquan Brisker, how is he falling to the 3rd round? How are some of these players available? Well, I'm not taking a tight end with this spot. I'm unfortunately not taking Jaquan Brisker. I am looking to upgrade linebacker, and that's Chad Muma, who I think will go on day 2 as well. He is a really, really good player. Great athlete, knows for the football. And the Broncos need to upgrade linebacker. Why not take one from the Mountain West? Not too much of a travel, not too much of a trip. Muma goes in round 2. And so many good players are falling to the third round because it's a deep class. Guys naturally will fall. You could find a number of different spots for the players that fell to the third round, especially Jaquan Brisker. I think Brisker's really good. I do not doubt Brisker as a prospect. I just took some other safeties over him, and then it just didn't make a ton of sense for me to take Brisker for any of these other teams. Could have been the Cowboys taking a safety. Absolutely. No argument there, but we went with Cameron Thomas. I think edge is a more immediate need. Could have taken him to the 49ers even. Chiefs, but we went Daxton Hill in the first round. Bengals, but I think they're going to franchise tag Jesse Bates. Still could take him. But yeah, I think players are going to have to fall. There are only so many players that can be drafted. And of the names that I'm seeing, do you see a reach in here? There aren't really too many, and they will happen on draft day. That's my 2-round post-combine mock. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.
It's insane, I hit it at the park, Ben Bones. See me high step to the end zone. My life like a game, Nintendo. Playing with the best, let them know. Get off the track, the train's coming through. Yeah, promise you get in my way, then you best believe I'ma just run over you. Yeah, yeah. Papa turn, taking it back to the house. Defensive joke, I'm laughing so loud. Speed burst good.